There's a quiet but powerful political shift happening in the heart of Europe, the Czech Republic. Once known for its reliable alignment with EU policies, the Czech Republic is now seeing the rise of new movements and leaders who are questioning the country's relationship with the European Union. With growing Euroscepticism and calls for greater national sovereignty, the Czech political landscape is changing, and this could have profound implications for the EU's future. So, what's driving this shift, and what does it mean for the Czech Republic's place in Europe? To understand this shift, let's start with the changing political climate in the Czech Republic. In recent years, a series of new political movements have emerged, challenging the traditional parties that have dominated Czech politics. These movements bring fresh perspectives, often with a focus on national interests over regional integration. Leaders within these groups argue that the Czech Republic should prioritize its own economic and cultural concerns, rather than adhering to what they see as restrictive EU policies. But why the sudden surge in Euroscepticism? A key factor is the perception that the EU's central policies don't always serve the best interests of smaller member states. Czech Eurosceptics argue that decisions made in Brussels sometimes overlook local realities, imposing standards or regulations that feel out of touch with what Czechs actually need. For example, there's a growing belief that EU policies on issues like climate, immigration, and economic regulations don't always reflect the priorities of the Czech people. Instead, they see these as priorities set by Western European countries, which may have different challenges and resources. This sentiment has only been strengthened by the economic challenges of recent years. The Czech Republic, like much of Europe, has been impacted by rising costs of living, supply chain disruptions, and energy issues that have left citizens questioning whether EU decisions are helping or hurting them. Eurosceptic movements have capitalized on this discontent, framing the EU as a distant power, one that expects member states to follow a one-size-fits-all approach, regardless of the diversity within the Union. And then there's the issue of identity. The Czech Republic has a strong national identity rooted in its history, and for many, there's a desire to preserve this identity without interference. Eurosceptic leaders argue that the EU's emphasis on integration risks eroding the Czech Republic's unique culture, traditions, and autonomy. They contend that while cooperation with Europe is beneficial, it shouldn't come at the expense of Czech sovereignty or the right to set policies based on local values. This brings us to the new faces shaping Czech politics. Leaders from these emerging movements are calling for a recalibration of the Czech Republic's role within the EU. Some are advocating for policies that prioritize national sovereignty within the Union, while others are even questioning whether the EU's current model is sustainable for a country like the Czech Republic. While leaving the EU isn't on the table, there's certainly a push for more autonomy within it. Now, what does this mean for the EU? The Czech Republic's shift could signal the start of a broader trend in Central Europe, where countries are increasingly interested in balancing their national sovereignty with EU membership. The rise of Eurosceptic sentiment isn't unique to the Czech Republic. Similar movements have gained traction in Hungary, Poland, and even Italy and France, reflecting a widespread debate about how much power the EU should hold over member states. For the EU, the challenge lies in addressing these concerns without compromising its unity. If it pushes too hard for integration, it risks alienating countries that feel overlooked or pressured. But if it allows too much autonomy, it could weaken the cohesion and collective action that the EU was built on. The Czech Republic's political shift raises tough questions for Brussels. How can the EU accommodate diverse perspectives while still maintaining a unified vision? Is it possible to find a middle ground that respects national identities and preferences while also upholding the EU's core principles? The outcome of this Czech political shift is likely to influence EU policy discussions for years to come. If the EU can navigate these changing tides, it could emerge stronger, with a renewed commitment to balancing unity and diversity. But if it fails to address the concerns of countries like the Czech Republic, it risks losing its influence and appeal, especially among smaller or Central European nations. So, as the Czech Republic redefines its political direction, the European Union faces a choice. Will it adjust its approach to better include diverse perspectives, or will it stand firm, risking the alienation of its more skeptical members? The Czech Republic's journey in this new political landscape could very well shape the future of the EU, testing its adaptability and resilience in an ever-changing Europe. What's your take on the Czech Republic's political shift? Will it encourage the EU to adapt, or could it mark the beginning of more divided sentiments across Europe? Let us know in the comments below, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications to stay updated on this evolving story.